Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. And I know a manga that will never get made into an anime. It's like redo of a healer, but much more. That being said, it's also more pleasantly written in terms of good story, but it is much more mature and graphic. That being said, it's got multiple versions of the story and even sequels. The Strongest Brave Who Craves Revenge, starring Raul Evans. So, there's several videos out there that cover it much more in depth than me. I think there's quite a few people that have already covered this manga. Imagine, though, whenever the PlayStation 6 comes out, if there was a video game that was very much like the Shadow of War game with Talion, mixed with Sword Art Online in terms of gameplay on the ps6. But yeah, I doubt this manga will ever get made into a anime, let alone a video game, in the style of, well, Shadow of War with the Nemesis system. After all, it is a revenge-based manga, and that game system does. Then again, we probably won't ever get that because someone decided to patent a game mechanic. It's so fucking dumb. But I mean, it's their thing to do with, but at the same time, what's next? Patenting fucking Pokeballs so you can't, like, capture animals in a ball or something. I don't know. But the Nemesis system is a really cool game mechanic. And this is a pretty interesting manga. That being said, I do like the light novels of Overlord and Reincarnated as a Slime. And the animes for those are really good too. The 17th volume of Overlord light novel will be coming out this June. In about 6 months. It'll be the second to last volume, since it'll be volume 17, not counting the Lost Princess volume, which is its own side story, which is also considered canon, and by the actual author of the main story. But that's a separate issue, but it's a good story nonetheless. It does give you extra information about the character, and is considered canon, as is the Overlord video game. That being said, I am looking forward to more of the Overlord and Reincarnated as Slime getting animated. But, yeah, Volume 17 will be out in half a year for Overlord, and Volume 18 is supposed to be the finale for the series. So we should have all of the unanswered questions for the show answered by then. I'm also looking for the Anato game, the anime Grand Theft Auto game, the Project Mugen, whatever. I think that'd be pretty good. The main question I wanted to bring up is the PlayStation 6. I can't say I'm an expert by any means at all in terms of what the high-end gaming laptops or computers can do. And I suppose even compared to a PS5 Pro, how would any of those stack up? Obviously, people would consider that the high-end gaming computers would be much more powerful than even a PS5 Pro. Then the question is, how much more powerful would a PS6 have to be to justify anyone who even has a PS5 purchasing a PS6? Then again, at that point, how powerful would we expect it to be? Heck, if a PS6 is meant to be truly competitive with the computer gaming scene, well, I imagine you'd have to go the route of, obviously I don't expect raunchy games, but you would have to expect games that go in the opposite direction of like the global standards or the DEI sort of stuff. Because we've had so many games that came from Japan that got edited or censored or even changed by localizers doing translations. But even games made originally in English wind up getting censored or dialed down. And yeah, heck, I wonder how many games for the PlayStation wouldn't even be willing to use the word that I'm going to use in the title. Just because I feel a lot of games just, obviously, again, I don't want games to go to an extreme. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z. I don't want it to be a hentai. I want action. I want it to be focused on that, but also I don't want it to be on other things. I just want an awesome fighting anime. You know? Everything's... But it's just... I feel that some game developers are just kinds of pansies. They're like, oh no, I don't want to offend people. And then I don't worry about offending people. That's what I'm trying to say with this. Is that, dear developers of video games, I don't want you to worry about who you're going to offend with your game. Just make a game that is fun. That's all I want you to do. I don't care about the political messaging bullshit. And I know that's kind of funny coming from me, given how much I go on fucking diatribes. But I'm just some random, crazy, otaku weeb loser who talks about whatever's on his mind. I'm not some game developer trying to market a game to millions of people. You know? I'm just saying, when it comes to a video game, I just want it to be fun. I don't want people to have to censor it or to I don't want the developers to be overly worried about, I'm going to offend people with this game because it's too violent or there's too much, this first person shooter is too intense and it's going to make people uncomfortable. I want a fun video game. Don't worry about what some random person on fucking Twitter is going to say. Just make the game fun and stick true to whatever fucking genre you're making. If you're making a fan service game, then make it as good as you can do it. Obviously, yes, keep in mind whatever's going on with your rating system. Obviously, most people are not going to push past a mature system, and obviously I'm not asking for straight up fucking hentai in a PlayStation game, though of course I wouldn't be opposed to some people having that available. I have enjoyed my share of hentai games. I still do. Obviously, I don't expect certain games to be full-on hentai. Like, take the Senran Kagura games. I feel that's moderately close enough. For the PlayStation games, you have Senran Kagura Burst Renewal, Senran Kagura Estival Versus, Peach Beach Splash, and games like that. Obviously, you could probably push the envelope just a tiny bit further, but obviously I don't want you to go straight up hentai. But again, to each their own. And of course, yes, you shouldn't go out just the complete shock factor. You shouldn't be doing fucking clickbaity shit, which is basically what I fucking did with this title. Then again, I'll say this. I like Albedo from Overlord. I like Shalltear. I like, I think it's Aura. Yeah, I can't remember shit very well. My memory fucking sucks. But how about this? Milim, or Shion, from Reincarnated as a Slime. I like the Date Alive visual novel. I want stories that people can enjoy. At the same time, obviously, yes, use some fucking common sense, but the main point is this. Don't worry about offending people. Just make a fun video game. Okay? At the end of the day, you'll see whether or not that idea flies or not, depending on the sales. Obviously, if you make a game that's Date Alive 7 and it's got a bunch of big titty 9-foot tall waifus as well as a bunch of lollies. Well, we'll see how well does the game sell. And obviously then, some people might not buy it if they do, like, oh, they're all offended by a certain, character aesthetic. At the same time, other people might be like, oh, it's got too censored, or there's entire story. Like if it's an anime, like, oh, you change the designs for a character, or you delete entire story arcs. How much you're going to censor. I mean, heck, there's things where you've had anime where a person was smoking and you edit it to be a lollipop, or like, oh, this person was drinking a beer and now it's a Gatorade. Like, obviously I understand where censorship's coming from, but I don't want a shit ton of fucking censorship in manga and anime. Obviously some people would say any censorship at all is bad, and other people would go completely ham wild and censor it to where they would they would basically say certain manga or anime should be illegal. Heck, there are some people out there that say anyone liking anime or manga is just a child and it's not meant for adults. I'll tell you this, I am 37 years old. I still enjoy playing the original Sonic the Hedgehog games. I enjoy video games quite a bit. Some games because they're fun. Some have really great stories. Heck, Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX. Absolutely amazing games. Incredible story. Heck, go to the fucking Super Nintendo. Not only do you have some good games for Super Nintendo that you wouldn't traditionally know about, but there's some, like, Super Mario World is a great game. Imagine playing that game, but try to play that game only doing spin jumps, or as fast as possible, speed run it. Or just try to avoid getting any power-ups. Some levels require it. Mind you, my ear is itchy. Hold on, itchy ear. My bad. And of course, yeah, there's some games and shit that's straight up hentai. But at the same time, and there's some games even for the Super Nintendo that kind of push, like, what was like Princess Quest or something, which is the idea of like how well, you can raise, like, basically you save this country from a world or something. Save a country, what the fuck? Basically, hold on, I'll be back. I'm cooking some Korean barbecue spam in a skillet. Right back. I don't want to burn it. Everyone's like, why are you cooking when you're recording it? Like, I'm hungry. I'm back. Everyone's like, that's so unprofessional. Like, you guys, if you think that's unprofessional, then this is truly the first video of mine that you have ever listened to. It's not done yet. Anyway, like, heck, take shooters, like the top-down scrollers with, like, there's like 20 really amazing side-scrolling shooters, and I don't mean just Gradius 3 or like fucking Star Fox or something. That's more of a 3D thing. Though there's multiple versions of that for both Super Nintendo and N64. But I'm saying, like, there's 20 good just normal side-scrolling or vertical scrolling, shooters where you're driving a fucking plane and you're doing stuff, and it's really, really fun. And I think the graphics still hold up to this day. There's so many games from back then that are just hidden gems, and many of them are just lost time, and people are never going to see. All right, the Princess Quest or whatever. Basically, like, God decides, fuck the world, everyone's a piece of shit, but then you get isekai'd and you save the world, and God's like, hey, good job, man. I kind of wanted to kill everyone, but you saved them from the demons and shit. That's really impressive. So in order to reward you, here's an 11-year-old daughter, which I didn't make the game, and the whole point of the game, because it's kind of like Escape Velocity, Siren's Call, to where like it's a joke parody of like, okay, it's taking place after a Persona game, whereas it's taking place after the main story of an anime like Slayers, where you save the world from the Dark Lord and shit and demons. And now you're like in the after story, but where you live happily ever after. But instead of like, having a family like the traditional way, you just have like a magical daughter, like Sailor Moon sort of thing. Anyway, so the game is about raising your child. And depending on how you raise your daughter, she could become a great warrior, or a teacher, or raise her own family, basically. But if you raise her very badly, she'll become a prostitute. Or like really hardcore and like S&M bondage stuff. So I guess not different than real life, I guess. Then again, that's a whole different story. But I'm just saying, it's like, It's like there's some aspects of video games, like the way the CRT TVs worked and the way the pixels worked, where it was like, it's showing different rays one at a time, the way the cathode tube works. And a lot of times that changed gaming color palettes, and people had to work around it. Same with gaming limitations in terms of, how much. Because that's one thing I wanted to say that was really going to be fascinating is this. Think about the differences in what video games and computers could handle in the past. I mean, look at the old school Atari, and then look at the NES, and then look at the Super Nintendo, the N64, the Sega Genesis, the Sega Saturn, the Sega Dreamcast, the GameCube, and of course there's all the handheld devices like the Game Boys and the Game Gears. Heck, Sonic 2 for the Game Gear, bit of a darker game. Beyond that, PlayStation 1, PS2, PS3, PS4, PS5, the original Xbox 360, and then I can't really remember what all the different Xbox One stuff is that happened. And then you had like a Nintendo Wii and a Switch and Switch something else and a Wii U and Switch 2 or something, I don't know. And of course there's all stuff with computers and Steam and Valve and well, honestly I really don't know the exact, like how the average gaming computer stacks up to like a PS5. Obviously my computer is nowhere near the level of a PS4, but I'm still grateful for my computer. That being said, heck, my Let's Play of Shadow of War was just a PowerPoint presentation where you're just seeing like 4 frames a minute of Talion stabbing an orc like it's a slideshow, and you're just hearing me cuss over it. So obviously my computer is not, though oddly enough, it recorded and played Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 really well, but that was just because that was much earlier on when I first bought the laptop. So honestly, it's just been a miracle this laptop's worked this long. Heck, about 6 months ago it started making like really, weird noises, and I thought the computer was going to catch fire, and I was like, well, that's the end of the Let's Plays. But then it stopped that, and everything's better for now. Hopefully indefinitely. Who knows? But all in all, still great for the laptop. It's cool, but I'm just saying I don't really know how they really set up. But I mean, other than the designs of the consoles themselves, or the vast, like the number of how many games are in the libraries for each console. But I mean, if you ever had the chance, like, look at the amount of circuitry that goes into each of those consoles. Look at the differences in controllers. Like, look at an old NES controller. Just a fucking D-pad, start, select, and A and B. And then just look at every controller since then. And then I have the question for you. How powerful would a ps6 have to be in order for it to be, of interest for people that have a PS5 or even a PS5 Pro to even value it, especially, return on investment in terms of improvements. Like, look at how, like, it's interesting to go back and look at how much, what the limitations were for, like, take the old NES from 1987. What could the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original Nintendo, what it could do? What the console could do, what the controller could do, what the cartridge could do, what the processing power, how much total memory it could hold. Heck, there's a little documentary video out there on the internet. You can just type in Crash Bandicoot 1 PlayStation 1 memory limitations, and the person who originally Naughty Dog talks about how he had to borrow memory from the PlayStation, which technically he wasn't allowed to do, but it's like, and they were, even then, when they sent it out, they were worried that it was going to let all the PlayStations catch on fire. But look at, between Nintendo to Super Nintendo to Super Nintendo N64, and then look at the processing power of the PlayStation 1 as opposed to the PS2, how much improvement there was. How much improvement did we have between the PS3 and the PS4? Between the PS4 and the PS5? How much improvement would you have to be of a similar value? I would say, I don't know which would be the greatest jump. Was it from PS1 to PS2? From PS2 to PS3? From PS3 to PS4? Or PS4 to PS5? I'd say whichever one is the greatest value and difference, I would want the PS5 to have a greater difference in value between it and the PS5. But that's the question. What will the controller look like for a PlayStation 6? What will the total processing power? What will the total memory that it's able to do? What will a disc, even assuming we still have disc, I still want physical copies of video games and none of the online stuff. Obviously I want online gameplay, but I'm just saying this. The game should be complete when it comes out, and, there shouldn't be you're required to be online to play the game. I should be allowed to play the game offline if I want. I'm just saying this. I want games to not worry so much about, if they're going to offend people or not. Just make your game. Enjoy full creative freedom, and don't worry about having to obviously I don't want you to censor things, but don't worry about making things overly shockful. That's not a word, but whatever. Don't worry about going too hard for shock factor just to shake a shock factor, and don't worry about toning it down so you don't make people uncomfortable. Just whatever game you're making, whoever you are, dear game developers of the future, just follow whatever creative vision you have. Don't worry about whatever the fuck anybody else is going to fucking say or criticize of your game. Just make the game you want to make. Just don't have any fucking compromises one way or the other. Don't make it overly lewd or gory to appease some people, and don't censor some shit or tone it down or cut scenes and shit to appease others. Just make the game that you want to make. Okay? Don't fucking, try to put yourself into some sort of box to appease people. Make the game you want. Whatever creative vision you have for your game, do what you want. Okay? I'd rather play a crappy game if it's actually according to what you fucking want to play. Because at the end of the day is this. I want the game to be fun. And there's been plenty of games that have been kind of fucking jank or had really weird design decisions. But they were still fun. And that's what I care about most, is that I'm going to have fun with the game. Heck, back to the Nemesis system. You know what? Warner Brothers, if you're going to have it fucking patented and copyrighted and all that shit, then at least let other people use it and pay you a small percentage. And don't be greedy with it, okay? I'm pretty sure if the game's good and you get a percentage of it, then guess what? You're probably going to be making bank, and you don't even have to do anything. Plus, at that point, if it makes bank, it's free advertising on that, and more people want to do it. So it'll literally make you billions of dollars, and you don't even have to do anything. That being said, how about this? The Senran Kagura games are pretty fucking kick-ass. How about we make a Shadow of War type game with the Nemesis system, but with Senran Kagura characters? And no, I'm not saying it's going to be like murdering people. I'm saying go full-on adorable kawaii weeb shit with this, okay? Like, stick with Senran Kagura. Like, obviously, there's not going to be blood, there's not going to be murder, there's not going to be violence or gore. There's going to be the same level of violence that exists in Senran Kagura games. But what's going to happen is instead of stealth kills, you're going to surprise people and hand them a manga. Instead of executions, you're going to give people hugs and head pats. Instead of shooting people with arrows, you're going to be throwing fucking plushie dolls at them. Then again, at this point, you know what? I feel like Mortal Kombat let everybody down. I want sexy, beautiful women in my video games. And you know what? There's an anime. Technically would be considered a hentai, but it's a really great anime that, above all else, has an incredible soundtrack. Bible Black has an incredible, amazing soundtrack, and the anime art style for that is great. Heck, there's so many great animes like Armitage 3 and Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040 that have incredible art styles. Like, so many great animes from the 70s and 80s, which the stories themselves are great. Heck, there are some animes in which they don't worry too much about the animation themselves, to where you can see a little bit of jank in the animation. But that's fine. It's got its own little charm. You can see everything's fucking hand-drawn. I don't even think CGI had been invented yet by then. Okay? But at the same time, you can tell they cared more about having a good story and characters that actually felt like they were alive. And at the end of the day, the style itself is still better than anything else I felt existed at that fucking time. And don't get me wrong, there's tons of great animation. I like different styles. And again, what I was saying is this: stay true to whatever fucking genre you make. If you're making a shooter, awesome. Lean into it. You're making a visual novel, that's awesome. And of course, your horror or a dating sim thing like Date Live, that's cool, that's awesome. But just make a fun game so that people enjoy it. Don't worry about what people are going to say about it. Yes, there's going to be people on the fucking Channel 10 News talking about how your game's fucking degenerate. Don't worry about it. Just make a game that is good. I don't care if there's a bit of jank here and there, or a few odd design decisions that some people think are weird. Heck, there's games I've played where there's certain things I thought that were like really weird to see, but they were still really good games. Heck, you know what else would be good for a Nemesis system? How about an entirely new Halo air quotes type game? Now, obviously, can't use Halo itself because, again, that IP is what it is. But I mean, I want a game that plays similarly to Halo 3, but better. And I want it to have the Nemesis system in it. I want basically a open world FPS game that plays like the original Halo 3, that's like really quick on action, very intense, but also has a Nemesis system put in there. Heck, how about a game like Where's Waldo? You guys remember those books? Those were pretty kick-ass. Beyond that, there's some really good games I can suggest. Like, for the PS2, there's Dark Cloud and Dark Cloud 2. There's Grandia 3, Wild Arms 4, Dragon Quest 8, Shining Force EXA. Also, the original Shining Force for the Sega Genesis is good. I only like Shining Force 1 and Shining Force 5. Shining Force 5 is Shining Force EXA for the PS2. And Shining Force, the original Shining Force for Sega Genesis. And I'll tell you this, the original Shining Force for Sega Genesis, absolutely amazing video game. Cannot suggest it strongly enough. Shining Force EXA, PS2, probably the best game ever made for the PS2. That being said, the most immersive game for the PS2 is Dot Hack Infection, which is a whole different series of games. But I would say I like the anime Dot Hack Sign with Tsukasa. That being said, the original Dot Hack Infection game for the PS2, absolutely amazing game. It even comes with anime OVAs. Then again, I would also suggest the Gundam Wing and Mobile Suit Gundam animes, as well as Tenchi Muyo, Tenchi Universe, Tenchi in Tokyo, Tenchi Ryo Oki, Tenchi Muyo GXP, Tenchi War in Geminar, Tenchi A Love. Obviously, Tenchi Universe, second best. Beyond that, Tenchi Muyo, Tenchi Ryo Oki, I consider those the same, even though they're kind of split. But I'm just saying, Tenchi Muyo, amazing anime. There's tons of great animes like Armitage 3. Ghost in the Shell is a great one. Okay? Heck, Serial Lane Experiments. That's another great one. Slayers with Lena Inverse. There's so many great animes. Heck. But imagine like a Mortal Kombat style game. But with the characters from Bible Black. Again, great soundtrack for that admittedly hentai anime. Which, again, amazing. Not just the H scenes, but the actual animation for everything else in the anime is great. Other than that, games I will suggest. For the original NES, Robo Warrior, Dragon Spirit the New Legend, Swords and Serpents, Mario 1, Mario 3. Also, quick shout out, I love my mother very much. I love my mom very, very much, and I enjoyed playing Mario 1 and Mario 3 with her, as well as she would cook home-cooked meals, and I would sit in the kitchen and talk to her about whatever when I was much younger. And, I'd talk to her while she's cooking. Just saying this. I love my mom very, very much. Other than that, Super Nintendo. Super Mario World, a bunch of those scrolling shooters. Obviously, Sega Genesis. All the Sonic games. Sonic 1, 2, 3, amazing games. Heck, I want to see Trump play the original Sonic games. Sonic 1, 2, and 3. Or even the Halo 1, 2, and 3 type games. Heck, at this point, I would consider anything made before Fallout 4 to be retro. Like, obviously, there's been good games since then, but I kind of feel like after Fallout 4, I've been a little more weary about trusting certain games. But, of course, I'm always looking out for new games that'll be awesome. Like, heck, that Nato game. Fucking anime Grand Theft Auto, that sounds cool. Even if it's a fucking gacha game. I'll play, but I would rather not be. I'd rather just be a fun fucking game. Heck, for the Xbox 360, the EDF 3 game, EDF 2017 was really good. But also, Crackdown. The original Crackdown for the Xbox 360, was an incredible game. Other than that, the PS2. Almost forgot to mention. Ratchet and Clank and definitely Star Ocean Till the End of Time. Amazing RPG. Like, it's an incredible RPG. Star Ocean Till the End of Time. Amazing game. Other than that, if we go back to the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, the best PlayStation game ever made. For the PS1, Brave Fencer Musashi. Also, strongly suggest Mega Man Legends. I still want a Brave Fencer Musashi 3 and a Mega Man Legends 3. And of course, like I said, really, really greatly enjoyed Final Fantasy 8 and Final Fantasy 9. Also 4, 5, and 6 were great games. Even Tactics. Tactics was good too. But Final Fantasies 4, 5, and 6 were great. 7 is, of course, too. And I played quite a few others. I'm just saying this. Final Fantasy 7 and I cannot suggest strongly enough Final Fantasy 9. But yeah, Final Fantasies 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9. Very, very good games. Beyond that, I guess the main thing I'm really just trying to say is this. You guys remember Sword Art Online? The anime, the plot of that story? You guys familiar with the whole Yggdrasil thing? That's not only mentioned in Sword Art Online, but also in Overlord. Again, I'm a big fan of the animes Reincarnated Slime and Overlord. Those are great, great animes. Obviously, I'm not suggesting people do straight up deep dive technology, because obviously that could have issues. But I am saying this. I really like those animes and light novels. I suggest them very strongly to people. I want more Reincarnated Slime and Overlord to get animated. And I'm looking forward to the newest light novels when they come out. I probably need to get down and get to my food before it burns. But I'm just saying to you guys, what do you guys think the controller for the PlayStation 6 is going to look like? What do you guys think the console will look like? What do you think the gaming specs will be for PlayStation 6 in order to justify making a PlayStation 6? What kind of games do you want to see on that PS6? What games would you want? Don't worry about, what gaming studios they are, or what kind of games they'll make. Don't worry about realistic in terms of what you expect to exist, in terms of what the game will be. I'm asking, what do you want? Obviously, I want realistic in terms of what you think the gaming specs will be, and what you think a PS5, what you think a PS6 should be capable of, and how much stronger and more powerful it should be than a PS5 in order to justify its existence. What I mean is this. What video games would you enjoy to be on a PS6? Like, if you are someone out there that has enough money that you'd be able to afford to buy a PlayStation 6 on day one when it fucking comes out, what kind of video game would you want? What kind of game? What would you expect from it? What kind of story? What kind of gameplay? What kind of genre? Do you want a shooter? Do you want a great horror game? Do you want an adventure game? Like, what would be fun? What do you want to happen in your game? What would make the game to be the game that you absolutely would enjoy? That would be such a good game that it would justify you getting the fucking PS6, provided you're able to afford such a thing. So obviously, yeah. That aside, I'm just saying this. How powerful would you expect a PS6 to be? And what kind of games would you want on there? Like, what would be the most fun game? Heck, imagine, what kind of new JRPGs could we get? What kind of new shooters? What kind of driving games could you have? Heck, imagine what VR could be at that point. But yeah, I'll go and end the video. I'm going to get my food before it burns. Hope everyone out there has a good day, and that you guys have all the hugs and headbats you could ever want. Later, guys. Bye.